Thank you. So, yeah, I want to please ask all the panelists to come to the stage because we agreed that everybody will introduce himself and say a few words. 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, perfect. All are coming. Yeah, as Nisha said, I'm Marco from DKIX and UAE Internet Exchange. I'm doing the business development for these exchanges, especially for UAE Exchange here in the region for a couple of years. And yeah, it's a big honor for me to have a very nice panel about content in the region, content peering, operators. And as it's Middle East, everything is last minute. So we have some people here who have said today, just 5 minutes ago, yes, I will come to the panel because somebody other dropped out. And so I will hand over to the introduction round. So let's start with Willie George from Omantel.
Hi, I'm Willie. I work for the wholesale BU within Omantel, and I'm responsible for building our international network.
Hi, my name is Sam. I work as partner engagement manager for Netflix. I provide engagement for ISPs that want to interconnect with us and receive our caching product in the Middle East, Mediterranean Basin, and Southern Europe.
Hi, I'm Adrian Bloom. I work at NBC and I'm the platforms manager for our digital stuff, so I work on Shahid and the other products.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I introduced myself this morning, but I will do it again. I'm Thomas Volmer. I'm responsible for peering and interconnection for Google in EMEA with hands-on responsibilities for this region, Middle East and the Gulf.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Mohammed Yahia. I'm representing Etisalat. I'm the product manager for the transit network as well as I handle MX Smart Hub IX.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum. I'm Bassam Al-Drewesh as a Data Network Operations Senior Manager in Integrated Telecom. So welcome for all.
So yeah, welcome all. Thank you for being on stage, for attending this panel. I think we have a very good mix of operators, of other exchange points as well. So we have 2 exchange points on stage here. We have big international content and we have local content here. And so everybody has a different stage of build out or different view of the build out in this region. And my first question goes to the international content guys who are operating here for a while now. Yeah, what is your state of rollout in the region? What is the state of peering, local content localization?
For us, you know, we started around a year and a half ago in the region and globally, actually, in all the countries where we didn't launch. And what we are doing the same that we did everywhere. We started by peering and addressing the majority of the traffic via public exchanges or private peering, and we are going to further localize into ISP network with our caching appliances. It's going well. We are progressing. Of course, there are obstacles that we are facing and we will face in the future, but everything is moving fast. Actually, we see a lot of uptake for our caches into the region. So a lot of the traffic is getting localized that way, and we hope to continue and to be able to do this in countries where we didn't do it yet to increase the QoE.
Sorry to interrupt at this point already. I have one question to clarify. When we talk about the region, what region are we talking about? Are we talking about GCC? Are we talking about the whole Middle East? Are we talking about the broader GCC, or let's say the Gulf region, also including Pakistan and these countries?
I refer to the whole Middle East.
Okay. Thank you.
And part of Northern Africa as well.
Okay.
Thanks for the question, Marco. Maybe to answer your later question, I think I wouldn't really reason in terms of Middle East as is typically defined from, let's say, Turkey to Iran or maybe Pakistan. I think those are very different sub-regions that have different realities. Obviously, I think Turkey, the Caucasus have their own dynamics connecting to Europe using many different ways on terrestrial or even submarine through the Black Sea. I think countries that have access would view them more as Mediterranean countries. So if I'm really thinking about this region, what Oman is part of, I would look at a kind of broad GCC kind of region with the Arabic Peninsula, essentially. That's how I would view at least this region through an interconnect lens. That being said, I think Google is not a stranger to this region. We have been working in this region, I think, with success and mutual benefit with all the parties for a long time now, many years. We have a successful caching program that is caching content all over the Arabic Peninsula with most operators, probably all of them really. And we also have interconnections all over the world, in Europe and in Asia mostly for this part of the world. Plus for the past few years we have started peering with our own content and network presence in two locations in Smart Hub in the UAE as well as in Omantel here in Oman. Those have proven challenging in their own sense. I think it's not so easy to build cross-border interconnection in the region. It's not so cheap either. But I have a hope that this can go in the direction of progress and improvement over time.
One additional question to both of you. I don't know who can answer it, but what is the ratio between caching, internet exchange? How good is the content really localized, and how is it localized? Is it more on cache? Is it more on the exchange? Is it more on, or even how much traffic is still going through Europe?
I don't know if I can answer for both Netflix and Google, but at least from Google perspective, I think there's a lot of content consumption, internet content consumption in the whole region. I think people are very enthusiastic about the internet, the freedom it provides, and the content that's available there. That's very clear. Video is the main driver, and video, as most of you know, is heavily cacheable. So I would say the majority of the content is cached in region. This is usually an 80-20 rule about what content is cacheable. I think that applies very well in the region, and because the way licensing is made, there tends to be fewer networks in the Gulf countries, but very large networks. So in those types of configuration, it just makes sense to work with individual networks more than with aggregators of small networks. So again, the vast majority would be cached inside operators' networks that would host their own caches. I can let Samir comment for Netflix.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same for us. We see a lot of demand for our services. It's probably more, it's a bit different in the sense that we see a huge difference country by country based on local regulation and whatnot. So there are countries definitely in the Gulf that have much more embedded and cached traffic inside their network than others. The aim, of course, is to progress into doing that more and more.
Question to the operators. So when it comes to content or traffic localization, how you see the status? I don't know who wants to start. I hope I will get an answer from all of you.
From the traffic localization point of view, this has been the first and a very challenging job for the operators from the eyeball network side. Having said that, we have to take care of our customer expectation in our stride when riding over the cable cuts. Okay, so in this sense, the content ratio of localization helped immensely, and we are having caches, okay, of the Google and others to just to safeguard ourselves.
Hi. So in our own case, we see it in line with what both Thomas and Samir were saying, right? So it's typically 70 to 80% from the caches. But the way we normally do it is we set up PNIs with the large CDNs, internationally at the exchanges, either in Amsterdam or Frankfurt or in some cases in Marseille. So in addition to Google and Netflix, we also have caches from Facebook. And we see that the content localization is typically between 70 to 80% from the local caches, and then the overflow typically comes from the PNIs that we set up with them, at the IXS, right? And in some cases, due to certain capacity, we may even see some overflow that comes from the IP transit that we have. So typically 70 to 80%.
So sorry, but when you say 70 to 80%, you're talking about the big international content available. Do you have also an
So our own strategy has been not just to keep it regional, but I think it was there in our presentation before, right? Where we said we kind of have 70% of our traffic come from non-IPT sources, right? So because we are building our own international network, our strategy has been to go and connect to the source, as close to the source as possible. And this is primarily because we have our own backbone extended to multiple places, right? So we have a combination of both at 70%. So it's not 70% just from Oman. Okay. Right.
I'm in line with my colleague from Omantel. Etisalat is having a bit above the ratio, like 80-85% of the traffic of, we are speaking about terabytes of traffic, which comes from direct PNIs and localization, okay, coin combination. So we have very small amount of traffic that goes to the transit, and our intention has always been to go to the source directly. So within our network, we have taken a lot of pain and built up the network from the redundancy, resiliency, and connectivity point of view, so the customer enjoys the best traffic and connectivity continued.
Maybe from our side as a ITC in Saudi Arabia, we have some content. One of the main content, maybe the Google nodes already is, we have it in our side. And also now still we are working like Facebook. There is a communication now with Facebook, so maybe also they will have our device inside our network. So we hope that it will be done, and inshallah it will be better for also for our customers in the region.
Bassam, I have a second question. I know you do local peering now for a while, so really peering also on exchanges. So, and how was internet exchange? No, I mean in the GCC, in particular you're connected to UAE-Exchange. That's why I'm asking you how you see the effect on your on localizing the content from there. How was this? Did this affect also your way of interconnection?
In Emirates.
Yeah, in the UAE. Yeah.
UAE.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what we now already that it has been connected for a long time with IE. So really, there is a good benefits, and we have a good benefits from our customers that the connection like Akamai and others, they are already is existing in UAE-IX. So we find this is really good for us and for our customers. So also now, in future now in Saudi Arabia, they will start to work on national IX. It's also under the government, and we hope that project will be finished as soon, because the main problem in our country in Saudi Arabia, there is a big player. It's called STC. I think they all know it. So more, I think, than 70% is of the customers in Saudi Arabia with STC, sorry. So they are trying to stop this project or not to fly. But we hope that, inshallah, as soon as possible, when this IX in Saudi Arabia, it will be all the players or the DSPs and the ISPs in Saudi Arabia will be connect on this exchange. So it will be a very good chance for us as a smaller player in the region. And we hope that it will be done as soon as possible.
So really to localize your traffic even more, to have it inside the country, to have the national IXP
Yeah, that's what we need, because now when you see, as you see the example before, when you see the trace route, it's always, yeah, we have a connection to STC or Mobile or Zain in Saudi Arabia. So this is very bad. Really, we should work together and to have this opportunity for all our companies.
To the statistics or to the graphics we have seen before. But before we come to that, I want to involve Adrian in the discussion. We know each other now also for a while. I know your content is very famous in the region, but it's not hosted here. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about your plans, what you're going to do, and what is your situation with the content.
Well, it's been a bit of a journey, I think. Shad was one of the first video streaming sites in the Middle East. And it was a steep learning curve for a broadcaster, because what we were used to, of course, is just beaming up to a satellite and then you reach everybody on our dish. And as soon as you get it to the satellite, you're done. If you then start building out your digital properties, you bring in people who are very used to building apps and sites and interfaces, but are not at all used to having to deal with all of the complexities of getting this actually to the end user. And I think everybody who came from outside of the region and started thinking it through here, how do you get high quality streaming video? You have to start understanding how the networks are connected. You have to start understanding how the cables are running. And that's not something that came natural to any of our people on the broadcast side or on the digital side. So I think for a very long time, our attitude to a very large extent has been, we're building a site. We have a lot of great video. We have an incredible catalog of online assets. There's currently about 150,000 different videos that we can stream. And then we go to the CDNs and sort of throw it over the wall and ask them to get it to the end users. There's various issues with that, not just that it's expensive, but also that you completely lose control of how good the streaming actually is going to be. So we have to strike a balance between doing things in an economical sense. We don't have huge teams to work on these things. But of course, if I look at what Netflix is doing, what Google is doing, what Facebook is doing, I want to do the same thing, because that's the only way that we can effectively get our streaming video to our audience at high bit rates in HD quality, which is becoming now the norm of what people expect from a streaming site. And it's an incredibly challenging environment. So I think we've been talking internally and with you and other people about how to go about this. It's hard if you only have this region to serve the majority of your traffic, to make a business case for actually doing something so custom. Because if we're talking about peering, then of course this makes great sense between networks. In our case, we have to first build something you can peer with. We don't currently have that. So I think the most reasonable thing for us to start with is to start looking at exchanges, where it makes sense, where there's enough traffic for us to make a business case for having our own caching servers there. I don't think in the short term we'll be able to pull off caching nodes with all of the different ISPs like you guys are doing. I would love to do that, but it's hard at our scale to make the case for it. But this year is really sort of the flipping that we would love to work with. But it's always a bit discouraging if you see the routing tables and you see how the traffic moves between the different countries here. I think it's I've become used to it, but it's still very, very strange that the largest broadcaster in the Middle East runs all of the digital properties from Germany, because we have everything on Amazon instances there. And that shouldn't be necessary, but we're forced to do it this way.
I hear what you're saying, and I also hear that you say, okay, peering will be the first step for you to distribute your content. And okay, we know in the long term, Netflix, Google will have everything, or let's say the majority is already on caching inside the ISPs. But I think for you, the next step after being on one exchange in the Middle East should be to be on all national exchanges, which will be hopefully there in the future. Is this some kind of a rollout plan you're heading for?
To focus on the exchanges, which makes sense if there's multiple parties that have good short connections there. Of course, with streaming video, we mostly want to have the shortest path and the least interference to the end user. Another tack would be to actually start looking at the largest ISPs and do on-net caching, because and especially on the digital distribution side, if there's distribution deals with specific ISPs. And of course, the immediate next question is, can we get a better quality of Shahid on our network? But again, exchanges make more sense, because for us, on a smaller scale, if you have a few caching nodes, it's just really expensive to build them. So it only makes economic sense for us to do this if any given network, on average, would take more than 10 gigabit of our traffic. Otherwise, we can't really make the numbers work.
So, if I would have a personal wish, my wish would be that companies like you come here to MENOG in a few years, go up on the stage when we have the peering intros, stay there, say your AS number and say, okay, we are connected to your exchange, to Smart Hub IX, to Palestine IX, Beirut IX, or how it ever will be named in future. So this would be a great thing, or Oman Internet Exchange, whatever will be, or also Riyadh Internet Exchange. This would be a nice wish, I would say. But coming to back to some issues we still see here. I mean, I'm very positive in the meanwhile, by the way, about what is happening in the MENOG region. It's and when I say MENOG region, I also mean GCC++. So GCC, Iraq. I also include Pakistan. I see Pakistan connects here and so on. So, but I would say Lebanon, and especially Turkey, is another story. It's another story by itself, and Iran is also another story at the moment, maybe. But so this is why I'm also referring, like Thomas, more to the GCC or what it's around it. I'm more positive than a few years ago. We see a lot of internet exchange initiatives, but we also see a few problems we saw over years. And one of the problems you were mentioning when you said, when you named STC, I see a big mentality problem. I would say it's a mentality of everybody wants to be the biggest, everybody wants to be the number one. And this is not how collaboration can work. So, but I want to ask in the round, how what feeling you have about it? Do you see developments in it? Do you see things are changing, or are you positive about it? Are you negative about it? What do you feel, and what do you think could be done and should be changed? Difficult question, yeah.
Let me just randomly pitch in. And I think to a lot of the people working in NBC, it's not just about that this is a cool media company. There's a lot of idealism there as well. And I've noticed that, for instance, in our tech team, there's also a certain amount of idealism that if we can help the exchanges to have actual traffic and make it attractive for people to connect there, and make ISPs connect and have better interconnection as well, everybody actually benefits from this in the region. And there's a strong sense amongst the techies that this would be exactly the kind of thing that we as a company would like to support.
My personal view is that the region specifically is still at the very beginning. So things are moving faster in some countries, they're moving slower in other countries, and that is just due to the fact that telecommunication is changing. We have in more content, less traditional telecommunication services. It's different than it was a few years ago. And this happened in other places around the world maybe earlier. It's happening here now, and everybody has his own time to adjust. And for everybody, I mean every organization. And some organizations are more easy on the change because they may be smaller and more agile, and other organizations are not that agile, so they will take their time to get there. But I think keeping trying to do this will help overall the region itself.
So I think there is a lot of progress going in the right direction. It used to be that all the packets in and out of the region would transit through Amsterdam or Frankfurt, and now they transit through Marseille. So, no, jokes aside, I think we talked a little bit about interconnection inside the region. I think there are some hard facts also that make it slower or less compelling in this region than in maybe other regions. I think, and I touched upon this in the beginning, I think the sheer amount of networks is not necessarily that huge compared to other places. If I look at a random country in Europe, Poland, I look at even individual AS numbers that I can peer traffic with, I will have literally thousands of networks. It's a lot. If I go to a country in the Gulf, even a gigantic country with a lot of internet usage, like Saudi Arabia, it will more be like 100 or in the 100 scale. So less networks mean mechanically less interconnection. And then if you look at each individual network's willingness or not to interconnect, at the end of the day, as I said earlier, deciding to build your own interconnection is kind of a make or buy decision. And so you can make that case either based on value or cost. Value is not very straightforward when it comes to internet because most providers just sell bulk internet access, so the value is not huge. It may come from the other end of the value chain as cloud providers like you mentioned Amazon or other cloud platforms might decide to build in the region. That could be a development. But the value equation in internet peering is not so straightforward. Cost is much more straightforward, and it's not easy in this region. Most of the international infrastructure, even sometimes domestic, are controlled by a handful of parties. That makes the cost high, and therefore the willingness of making versus buying not great.
So we have seen that, and I know a lot of examples that traffic between operators, which are, let's say, the one is in Saudi, the other is in Qatar, or the other one is in Kuwait, the other is in, let's say, Bahrain, to say random examples, that the traffic is flowing through Europe, or sometimes we have seen even one example where the traffic from Jeddah to Dubai is going one time around the world. So you say, or I want to ask you the question, do you see a value if these people connect to each other really local, or you say it just doesn't matter?
Well, I think it's up to the individual networks to reply, right? But if I put myself in any given network shoes, I will look at my main sources of traffic, and those are the ones I want to interconnect with. The long tail typically is not that huge, unless for some random peer-to-peer traffic. I doubt there is that many bits going from a household in Qatar to another household in the Gulf.
I want to hear at least from one operator an answer, please.
Well, the content colleagues have already mentioned their point of view. It's work in progress. Okay, there has been a beginning. Okay, which hat are you wearing? And which point of view you are looking at the network? Okay, for us as a carrier, okay, we have to a dual role. One, to satisfy the customer, and second, to satisfy the shareholders. So we have very, very thin margin to walk upon.
I think also in the Gulf region, the other reason that they are saying, okay, if we are connecting to like Marsilia or IX, anybody in Europe, he's in mind, he say, okay, I will find a big benefit for me, because he's just seeing his customer. He don't seeing the other customer and the other company. He say, from my side, I'm connecting. It's too much? Okay. So from his side, he's saying, just I will connect to like Europe, one of the big nodes in the Europe, so I will be connected for all the world. I don't worry about some of customers in Qatar or some of connection in Emirates. It's not too big much like than the other world. So he's thinking like that. It's a bad way, I know, but the big player, they are thinking like that. So they will be always the main companies thinking, okay, I will go with the big player, sit with them, he's already have X connect outside, so I'll be in the good connection. So I think this is one of the main concerns.
So,
Can I add something? Okay. I made that point earlier, but you have a huge media company running these things from Germany because we can't get this kind of interconnection. We would love to do these things from the region where we are actually at. And that's really the kind of thing where you see that it does matter, because if you look at a Google, it comes from the outside the region. If you look at Netflix, most of the content is coming out from outside the region. These are basically the endpoints of their infrastructure. To us, this should be the central hub for our infrastructure, and we can't do this right now. And I think that a lot of things that would have been possible, could have started growing here, are currently just not going to be there. And this is not something where direct competition between telcos makes a lot of sense, and that kind of shielding off the different networks from each other, because everybody could literally make money out of this, and we would much rather spend it in the region than outside of it.
Yeah, see, as Omantel, we are quite open to interconnecting with other folks, and this is reflected in our history as well. We went to the first IX, in Europe in 2010, and as you know, we are also, trying to get a connection up in UAE-IX as well. So, with regards to content staying local within the region, if you look at our interconnections, we already interconnect with both the other ISPs in Oman. In addition, we connect to Etisalat, Viva, not STC in Saudi Arabia, but now this is not through an internet exchange, but through direct agreements that we have with them. But if we have an opportunity to connect at an internet exchange, then we are open to it. Look, the way we look at it is, if you go to an exchange, it's also a business opportunity for us, right? Because just because you go to an exchange doesn't mean you give everything for free, right? It's an option for you to sell IP transit as well. So the way we look at it is, if there is an IX and we can, be present there and we can do business there, we're all for it.
Well, the IP transit selling point is a good point, by the way. I can refer later on, but I want to give a feedback to what you have said. I think it's pretty much done for the big content networks. I think Google, Netflix, and don't take me wrong, I don't think you have any issue. I mean, of course you have issues in the region. It's tough, every region is different, you have to adapt, but you do this worldwide, so you know how to handle it. You know how to handle South America, you know how to handle Africa, you know all these regions in Asia. So GCC is just another one with its own specialities, and I think you're doing a pretty good job, and especially with the tools you have, the caching and everything. You have the right tools to do it. But I like the MBC case. I like this case because it shows a lot that because of this missing interconnection, between all the operators because of what we have seen on this JEDI map. This traffic is coming from Germany. I mean, I'm coming from Austria, I'm not coming from Germany. I don't care what the Germans do, but if it could come from Austria, I might like it, but you know what I mean? At the end, it's wrong. And the answer you said with Marseille, by the way, is also the answer DKIX did.
A very simple one is that this morning I flew here from Dubai. It's a 1-hour flight. I did not go through Frankfurt.
Really? And not through Marseille?
Marseille, I don't know.
So I think if we go back to the question you asked, Marco, about the value of all this, I think if the question we are looking to answer is, do people in the GCC have access to 80% of the internet with a 80% satisfactory quality? I think the answer is yes. I think infrastructure here is high quality, throughputs are good, 4G is everywhere. People have access to high quality internet in the Gulf. Is there a missed opportunity in the sense of local interconnect and local hubs? Yes, those local interconnects and local hubs do not exist today, not in a very meaningful way anyways. And what is the missed opportunity for someone like Google? It is the ability to just go and build into one place and connect to a bunch of networks. Because we have the scale, this is not necessarily mandatory. We can work with a few parties and work our way fine. Not all parties have this kind of scale. And plus, what we have observed all around the world, and a very good example that comes to mind is, let's say, Singapore. If you are not so big in yourself, but you are open, and you create that kind of environment where every party comes, and any little company can start from scratch and connect to everyone, that's where you start to have network effect. I think the spot for being the Singapore of the Gulf is up for grabs. It doesn't exist yet. It could be a good business model to foster some growth and some different business development. So if there's any forward or progressive-looking policymaker in the room, that's a hint.
Also, I have something maybe because now Google and Netflix with us. I think in GCC, my advisor to this big content to talk directly with the government level. Because there is like a government level like CITC or whatever, the authority in each country like Saudi Arabia or Emirates or Qatar, because if they can talk directly and approve for them the benefit and the good way that when we use this IX in each region and we can contact all these regions together also in one IX as a GCC, I think this, if it's come from government, it can be done. But through the companies, every company just is thinking by himself. So this is the bad thing in I don't know about the other country, but that's what happened in our country. So if it's come by force, I think this, not like force, I mean it's come from your side to the government, then the government will improve that this need to be done in this region, so they will start with the other companies one by one to force them to be under this IX.
Well, so my experience is that this would come, yes, through government or regulatory intervention, but not necessarily by force, more through the forces of the market, that people come together because the environment is friendly or open to do business. So if we go back to the example of Singapore, for example, what they have done there is, for example, enforce non-discriminatory access to essential infrastructure, like cables or landing stations. I think those can create the kind of environment that then brings people together in a given place, and I think it has been quite successful, and it has even encouraged the whole region to grow, as we have seen this morning with the examples of Indonesia. It used to be that Indonesia was all transiting Singapore. I think it's less true now.
Well, I I also think that force is the wrong thing to build an internet exchange. Yeah, the force of the market.
I mean, I'm not meaning force by force. I mean, what they prove for the government, what is the benefit, what is the disadvantage, what is the advantage, you will save your capacity, all your network is not going outside, like that. Yeah. But talking with the government, when they will have this and they trust it, so they will start from their side to say for the companies, yes, let us work on this. And it will be start from the government. That's what I mean. The other point, also in our region, what I see, every country, if you go, and also this another, when I see outside, no, there is a fair competitor. The problem in our GCC, there is no fair competitor. And really this another point. You will see it in Saudi Arabia, one of the companies is 70, the other is 30. Also if you go to Emirates, one is taking more than 670 or 80. In Qatar, that's the company is under the government, it's dominate everything, and the others just trying to eat something of this business.
Well, I wouldn't say this is a very GCC specific thing. I come from Austria, and I can tell you Telekom Austria had 80% of the market share. And it's an open market share, and they are sold to a Mexican company now, and the Austrian government looks like, So it's not specific. But when we talk about initiatives, I mean, I think then what they're talking about is less force them, it's more about making the mindset for building exchanges. I think we saw a lot of development here already in the region. I know there was a tender for building an internet exchange in Qatar, there was a tender for Bahrain, I heard there are initiatives to build something in Oman. I know Saudi Telecom wants to build JEDIX as an internet exchange, or maybe some kind of, we will see. I know you are working on the internet exchange in Riyadh, so I think the awareness is more or less there to build internet exchanges in the region. The question is what we all make out of it, because if I think about, and this is the point I wanted to highlight, we look at the JEDI thing, and I know that, and Bernd also mentioned it before in his comment, that we know there are connections, sometimes they're not even used. Sometimes it's just a lack of knowledge, but sometimes I also experience companies who say, we appear in the region. I mean, Omantel is by definition a good example. Your company is definitely a good example where I know from. Other companies are as well very good examples, but we also experience companies who say, no, I will never appear with anybody from the region. I will appear with everybody else. But from the region, we have an open peering policy in Frankfurt, but restrictive peering policy in the UAE. A Saudi company saying that, for instance. So, and I think there we have to do a lot of work. And I wonder how the operators see that. I mean, you have different perspectives. What you would tell your colleagues to overcome that? If there is something, also from your experience.
Marco, as I mentioned earlier, this is where you see things by wearing what kind of hat, okay? But having said that, what Thomas has mentioned and what others has mentioned, we have appearing in place, okay, like George has mentioned, we are appearing almost all operators in the region, okay? Being a dominant player in the market, we appear with our competitor next door, okay? So our intention at Etisalat is to make the traffic localized, keep it local, and it's paying. We have a regional policy where we pair with everyone. We have local policy, and there are some stuff that we have to take care from the revenue point of view. So the moment that we negotiate or compromise on that, and we cease to exit. So this is something that we have a challenge, and we are working on this one. And there have been a lot of development which everybody from the big content players, Thomas has agreed, okay, Isam has agreed. So there will be a time the change will see a practical light, okay. For that change, the ball has started rolling, so you have to have some little patience, okay, to see this light.
So I think we need to differentiate between interconnecting, or peering and actually selling IPT, right? So I think you have to look at it on a case-by-case basis, right? So even if you have an internet exchange, it doesn't necessarily mean that you give or you connect to everybody for free, right? So we have operators that we peer with, and then we have operators that we sell IPT to, right? So even if an internet exchange comes locally, that's really not going to change, right? I mean, that's something that has to be, worked out. I mean, as my colleague from Etisalat has mentioned, right? I mean, there's also so I think there was a consultation that was done by TRA in Oman, right, to look at the feasibility of doing an internet exchange, right? And we all contributed to that paper. But I think, as Thomas mentioned, if you look at the number of ASNs that are present in a country, I don't think we have more than 20, right, in Oman, right? So it really begs the question, does Oman need an internet exchange for, local traffic, right? So you need to have a viable strategy for that as well, right? For setting it up. So.
Okay. To close that topic, I want to mention that I don't think that anybody on this stage has a bad strategy for peering or these kind of things. Just to outline that, I know you're operating your own exchange, so I think, and I saw the development, so I think this improved a lot over time. I mean, I know from this region I started 6 years ago here. Things were definitely very, very different, and a lot of people not even thought about peering in the meantime. And that's what I wanted to say before with the positive thing. Everybody thinking about it, which doesn't mean it will make sense everywhere maybe, but at least everybody is thinking about it, and this is already some big change of the picture. And mentioning the 20 AS numbers in Oman, I just think about UAE. We have, I don't know how many AS numbers, 60, 70 in the meantime, I don't know. Why I don't know? Because they're not allowed to peer. Because they are not allowed to peer. Why? Because we have filtering in place. So the number of peers from the region itself is again limited by, think about Saudi Arabia, if you think about international peering, we are talking about four potential peers. So this of course is a limiting factor to the region, but still, and there is the point where I want to outline what Thomas said. Think about Singapore. Singapore is not a huge market. But Singapore is one of the major hubs in Southeastern Asia, so, or in the world even. So Singapore is one of the places you want to be if you want to do a worldwide rollout. And just think about how many Middle Eastern networks have a POP in Singapore. I mean, yeah, almost everybody has one. And so the question is, if you think about the location here, and here coming back to the airport scenario, Dubai is a big airport hub. It's one of the biggest hubs in the world. So obviously this region has a hub function, ever had. So it should be the same for internet. And I want to have one last question before we come to the closing round. We have a lot of questions here. Okay, sorry, from the audience. So let's have some questions from the audience. Saleh.
Hello, yes. Thanks, Marco, and thanks for the panel. Very interesting. I'm Saleh Mansour from PIX, Palestine Internet Exchange Point. My question is for Shahid.net or MBC. We had a long debate and discussions and work with some technical team from MBC from really, if I can remember, 1.5 or 2 years from now, discussing the opportunity of having Shahid.net or MBC servers hosted PIX, and we are ready as also as a technical to help your team, or not help, or even to discuss if we can help, because this is the only, maybe we can say, the only significant local content that we should all care about. And all ISPs, all internet service providers in Palestine, even in Jordan, ask me, Saleh, because I'm the community, please, before Ramadan, please, we need shahid.net before Ramadan. So when I return back to my office, I open the email and start talking with the technical from MBC, any updates, and we are ready if you want anything from us. So what are the barriers? We had all the technical knowledge, even if we can work together to improve this local Arabic content. Thank you.
The barrier is mostly that, like I said, we need to more or less productize something that you can peer with before we can do actual peering. Over the past few years, we've every year made great steps in improving the video delivery that we do across the Middle East. Last year we made a huge impact on several countries in the region because we changed bit rates. Something as simple as that can have huge impact. But it also means that we look at the bit rates, we look at the streaming formats, we look at the kind of DRM that we can use, we look at how we can do the ad stitching in our video, and so on and so on. And we want to have a look at how we can actually bring this closer to the end user and use exchanges to do this. So the ambition is there, but we don't have a couple of hundred people to actually work on it. We have a very active, very knowledgeable tech team in Jordan, but there's only so much you can do. But this is why we really have to take a pretty cautious approach and first start sort of with the low-hanging fruit of we can test high-volume traffic somewhere where there's a lot of connection, a lot of opportunity to actually see how this works and how we can tweak it to adapt to our kind of content. Because let's not forget, our kind of content is, on a technical level, also completely different than Google's or Netflix's. We're mostly ad-supported, and that brings its own challenges. So yes, the reason actually that this conversation with you, for instance, has been going on for quite a while is because all of us really want to work with you on this. So the enthusiasm is there, but we need to get over that first hurdle of how does this actually work in an effective way with our content coming from various services outside of the region, and how can we literally take those bytes into the region and then start spreading it out again. So it's a work in progress.
Jad was there first.
Yes, hello. My name is Jad Al-Sham, and I come from Lebanon. I'm the technical manager at Data Consult. I actually have a comment and a question for everyone in the panel, in addition to Nishal and Hisham, and maybe Johan as well. I would like to touch base a little bit on the relationship between content and peering. And when I think of it, the first analogy that comes to my mind is the chicken and the egg. So which come first, right? As part of my work for the last 8 years, we're a network solution provider. So we've been building backbones and core networks for ISPs, DSPs, mobile providers, service providers in Lebanon and the area. And when we try and go and ask them, why don't you do peering between each other? And I come from a country where peering wasn't that very, how can I say, popular. They say that, why do I need to peer with the others? Because let's face it, okay, these probes, the RIPE Atlas probes, they are really nice, and we can do pings and traceroute and all of that. But the majority of the traffic going in and out of these countries, these are not local destinations. Because whether we like it or not, peer-to-peer applications isn't something very popular here in our area. And in fact, a lot of backbone providers and service providers, they actually kill the peer-to-peer protocols, like, for example, BitTorrents. It's also coming from a UC background, I know for a fact as well that a lot of media applications like VoIP calls and so on that are peer-to-peer in nature, they are also blocked in this country. And I think, Thomas, you mentioned that the video is the driving factor behind all the traffic nowadays, most of the traffic on our networks. And I do concur with this because I've seen it in my line of work. So here's my question for you. And it comes from a personal experience as well. Fadi here, my neighbor, he's one of the people who runs the Beirut-IX, and my company did actually peering with Beirut-IX for one reason, because we wanted to benefit from the Google cache that they had. So my question is, do you have statistics about the change in the behavioral of peering between peers in the Middle East after that content provider moved in? So I think Thomas might be the best to answer this question because they said that Google is present here in UAE and in Omantel. And I would like to extend another question and be the black sheep in the room and suppose that we don't live in a perfect world where all the ISPs think about the best state of the internet, but they think about their best financial status, how they can make revenues out of it. So whether they are thinking about doing hot potato routing or whatever, if you guys have more content here in the Middle East, don't you think more and more ISPs will do peering between each other? Thank you.
Before you answer, one thing. We have 3 minutes left, if I'm right. So please, short answer, short question. Okay? Thanks.
Sorry about that.
So if the question was super long, does that mean I get to do a super long answer?
Exactly the opposite.
No. So yes, there is a circular relationship between content and interconnect. I think that has worked particularly well in Lebanon. We did deploy at Beirut-IX because it had this neutrality and the fact that there were a bunch of networks there. And after we did deploy, we saw a significant amount of interconnect happening. And in fact, internet is booming now in Lebanon from what I heard this morning. So that's really great to hear. And I hope a lot of other content will follow. I think Lebanon, in terms of economic freedom and the dynamism of its players, is probably not your typical Gulf country. My experience is that Lebanon, there's a lot of people all around creating companies, making business, interconnecting, etc., which is probably very specific.
Okay, last question, please.
Yeah, hi. Maher Kassim from Moscow Group, Lebanon. My question is similar to his, but it's more business aspect related. I mean, you can say forever, build it and we'll come. But why not say, we're here, come connect? It sounds much better. Like if you say to somebody, if 100 people, gather in a corner, Elvis Presley will come. Nobody's going to gather, but if you say Elvis Presley's in the corner, you're going to see everybody going to the corner. So from a business perspective, what is the main obstacle that prevents the content providers from doing that? From saying, let's say, going to a central, neutral location and saying, okay, we're here, we're much closer to you than Frankfurt or Marseille, we're in Dubai, come connect to us.
So I reply on how it works specifically for us. We are very data and traffic driven. We will go where the traffic is. If there is no traffic, it really doesn't make sense for us to build. Of course, we are in the Middle East. You can come to us. We are at UAE-IX. We have a large presence there for now, and we can get all the long tail of the traffic, as we call it. That is the traffic that is not significant enough to get a local deployment there. So we are open to peer for sure. And regarding the chicken and egg situation, it's exactly like that. We cannot move. It doesn't really make sense for us to invest a lot of energy and a lot of money in something that is not yet happening. From what I can see in Lebanon, the situation is very fragmented. There is all national IX that is going to start. There is also Ojero that wants to peer. There is a lot of players and everybody wants a cache. The real fact is that there is no traffic going there at the moment. This is for us at least. Okay.
Thank you. I think we're at the end of our panel. It was really great to have you here. Big applause for all of you. And instead of having the last round of all saying goodbye, we will do a selfie. Okay. Thank you, and thank you for all of you to listen to us. I hope we had an interesting discussion, and I have to talk 30 seconds more until Nishal is up on stage, or 10.
Thank you very much, Marco, and thank you to the panel. Please, a round of applause.